Trump's gonna rock this show. Step into life where the real facts flow. Step into
Oh, whoops. Hang on. I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing here. Something got messed up. Hello. Hiya. How you doing, Harry? Yes, you are always the first one here. I don't know how you do it. I guess you have some kind of notification sent. So something weird's going on with my audio. I couldn't hear the music as it was playing. Hopefully it was playing. How are things going over there in the United Kingdom, my friend? I want to actually. I should make sure my audio is working. Is the sound working okay, Harry? Uh-oh. Hang on. Well, okay, so we got sound going. All right. Yeah, I got to figure this. Too old to learn this stuff. Anyway, the other app I used was much better, but it was also much more expensive. It's like really, really expensive. So some stuff that's going on. Donald Trump. Wait, what is this? Okay, my prime minister has made a lot of money in spending commitments in 3 weeks. Oh, $10 million. So he's on behalf of that's the country spending the money. See, we're used to seeing things like Donald Trump made, $10 billion this week, and it's like personal income off of selling pardons and stuff. So 12, 10, it's all those zeros. Hundreds, thousands, millions, $12 billion. $10 billion in euros. It used to be more than 12, or I guess we're not doing well against the euro these days, are we? It used to be closer to even. I don't keep up on the exchange rate, though. Anyway, Donald Trump. Okay, so a few things before we get into the main thing today, which I wanted to talk about the economic impact of mass deportations being exactly what I always said it would be. But now there's some studies coming out, and it's really, really bad. And I want to talk about that because it does matter. But before we get into that, yeah, you guys use pound, or no, is that pounds? Yeah, I'm sorry. That's right. You guys left, right? All that Brexit stuff. Man, it's a Monday. You got to give me some slack, Harry. So first thing that's we can talk about a little bit is Trump's ballroom it's costing $900 million. It went from free to $900 million. And now he's trying to declare that it's just like it's all for defense. So he doesn't need any approval at all. It went from just being like a place that dignitaries could dine to, well, he needs this or else he's going to get assassinated, while he's flying around on a plane that had no security, and he's got to duck into the catering cart and hide. Seems like he's only worried about national security when it, feeds his wallet. We literally put a clause in the Maastricht Treaty that we can keep using the pound even before Brexit. Yeah, I thought you did. Hamburger is double here from last week. I went shopping. Wow. Is it really? I haven't bought any hamburger this week, so let me check something out real quick. I'm just going to go to HEB and what is it? Whoa. Okay. Even the cheap stuff. Even the cheap stuff, like the 70% stuff, is like $5 a pound now. Yeah. Wow. The 80% is $6 a pound. Man. And I live in Texas, where I imagine it's a little cheaper because, we have pretty good cattle farm here. You can buy a 10-pound log for $41.99 of the really cheap 73% stuff. I remember when it was less than $2 not that long ago. I usually get a 90%, 6% ground beef. I couldn't even get 80%. I've been thinking I might do it like the thing RFK Jr. does, but like do it for real, where I can like make food that's good for you, but is not like incredibly expensive. So this weekend I made some bread that was I used hard red, hard white, and rye. It was my first experiment with rye bread. It's so good. It's like the perfect sandwich bread. Um, and what I've been doing lately now is I'm I got these chicken breasts from Amazon. I got a really really good deal on Amazon, $1.29 a pound for chicken breasts, if you can believe it. And so I roasted those in the oven, and then I thin sliced them to make like my own chicken deli meat for $1.29 a pound instead of like the $7 a pound that it costs. And it doesn't take that much work. But yeah, I had a sandwich that was fresh, all organic, fresh milled flour, rye bread with my oven roasted chicken breasts and some butter leaf lettuce, Swiss cheese, tomato, and probably cost less than $1 for the whole sandwich. And just like very very healthy. So I'm thinking I might start doing some videos on cooking. People need that. The other thing you can look for is you get these I actually made a video of it. I think I might have to reshoot it. It didn't come out very well. But you get the 10-pound chicken leg things. You can get them here for like $4.90. And so it's like what I do is I get the chicken leg things, then I peel off the skin, and then you can just kind of throw the skin in a slow cooker for a couple hours and let it kind of melt until it's really softened. And then you throw it in the skillet and you just pan fry it until it crisp up, and it's like this kind of bacon like thing. And then I kind of break that up and I use it in salads like bacon bits. It's so good. I think they're called cracklins. And then I take the chicken and I roast it in the oven, and then I shred the chicken and I use that for things like Alfredo, chili. Uh, uh, One of my favorite things to make with them is the quesadillas, and then like chicken Alfredo, or just different stuff that you'd use shredded chicken for. And then with the bones, I throw the bones along with any other, like the drippings from the chicken and stuff. I just throw that all into a pot, along with, I get a bunch of chicken necks, which are like 99 cents a pound. Throw those in a pot, simmer them for a while, and make a chicken stock out of that. And then, so like for like $7 worth of food, I end up getting like 2 gallons of chicken stock. Um, I weighed it out. It was like about 4 pounds of meat, and the cracklins. If you buy those things are like $12 a pound or something. They're like really expensive, and like those are basically just free. But if you just save your chicken skin, and it takes like 5 minutes to make it. So anyway, I've been thinking about doing some videos on how to live, how to eat well cheaply. So forever, a pound here, there was 20 shillings. Each shilling was 12 pence. So a pound was 240 rather than 100 pence. How about Mike Pence? How many Mike Pences were in a pound, or how many pounds are in a Mike Pence? It's not that fat. I bought chicken instead. I don't blame you. Hi, Wesson. How you doing? So we use base 12 and base 20 currencies simultaneously. I could never figure it out. Did I ever tell you I lived in England for 3 years, Harry? When my dad was assigned to Milton Hall Air Force Base. I was a kid, but I can never figure out what, I remember I had the 2 pence piece. Like, I'd go around and I'd polish people's mailboxes as a kid for 2 pence. Like the those brass mail polishes, or brass mailboxes, that you open up from the slot things. I know you know what I'm talking about, but we don't really have those in America. But yeah, I started working when I was like 9. I'd walk around, knock on people's doors with a polishing cloth and some brass. So I'd be like, I'll polish your mailbox for 2 pence. And then I'd make enough money to go over to the BPO. And it was called the BPO. It was like across the street from the base. So I'd go over to the BPO and I'd buy, like candy and stuff. I'd buy the Penguin candy bars. Secret Service code name for the catering part was Panda Express because it contained orange chicken. I've heard so many good orange chicken jokes. Cook your own foods. Yes. I find cooking food is like a really healthy way to eat. You know exactly what's in it and what's not in it. I've noticed a significant uptick in homeless asking for money on my way every morning. It's so sad. It is not. Donald Trump has not been good for the economy. And I feel like we're missing how bad it is for most Americans, because the way that we measure the economy a lot is in the aggregate, and not in like the minutia. And so what happens is we'll say consumer spending is about the same. Like with the GDP, it's broken up into consumer spending, investments, government spending, and net exports. The biggest one of those is consumer spending. So if consumer spending is not changed, we don't really panic about the economy. But what's happened is we've seen a larger and larger percentage of that consumer spending being spent by the top 10%. So now the top 10% is spending about half of all the other money, half of all the money. That means the other 90% is spending the other 50%. And what they're spending it on is more and more necessities and less niceties. And they're having to buy it on credit, like they're buying food on credit cards because they don't have enough money. They're not making enough money to buy food off of their paycheck. And so they're borrowing money to survive rather than borrowing money to go to Disney or something. Then what happened? Okay, and then we have another aspect is that debt carries over from month to month on credit cards, or it doesn't. Like some people, like just spend all of their money on a credit card so they can get the credit card points, and then they pay their credit card off entirely at the end of the month. Other people buy stuff on credit cards because they don't have enough money to like pay for their food, and then so that money accrues a balance and puts them deeper and deeper into debt where they have to pay more and more of a percentage of their income on interest because they owe more and more credit card debt. And a lot of these people, they're like to the point where they're, like half of their spending is on credit cards, and their credit cards are massive. And so like 20% of their income ends up going to just pay credit card debt, which means they have less money, which means they have to borrow money. And it just becomes this cycle. And what happens is they get to the point where that cycle can't continue anymore. They just don't have enough money to pay their credit card bills. So they stop paying their credit card bills and then go into default. So if you look at the second thing is that credit card, the percentage of credit card balances that are being held over, that's been steadily going up. And another thing that's been happening is the number of credit card defaults are going up. So you have people going into debt, getting less just to pay for their necessities. They're still able to buy less, even though the spending is the same, but it's offset by the fact that the wealthy people are getting more money and spending more money on things they don't even need. So you have, like you've probably heard a lot about K-shaped economy, but I feel like K-shaped doesn't even do it justice anymore. It's almost like an H-shaped economy where it's just falling off a cliff. I don't know. We don't have a letter where one side, but yeah, it's really, really bad. I haven't used my own oven since last April. Too expensive. Bought an air fryer. Hey, air fryers are awesome. I use an air fryer a lot. So Trump is. So tell me you don't really understand it. Don't spam. You spelled words wrong. I would just really like to ask people that really believe Donald Trump is the best president ever. What did he do that's better than ending slavery? He's invisible anyways. And so there was a 1/4 pence coin, a half pence coin, a 1 pence coin, a 3 pence coin, a 6 pence coin, a shilling, and a 5 shilling coin. I have and a 2-pound note, and a 5-pound note, and a 10-pound note, and a 20-pound note, and a 50-pound note. And we can't forget the guinea, which was $1, and 1 shilling, which was basically a way of scamming you out of a shilling. I don't even know how you guys keep up with all of that. What's the New Guinea? Oh, that's a country. Never mind. I noticed how prices have increased by buying random stuff like Gillette Mach 3 razor blades. A few months ago, an 8-pack was $10 and change. Today it was $34. I'm glad I have a beard. Oh, I'm gonna start. Yeah, there you go. I'm telling you, saving's cheaper when you have a beard. What is the answer out of this debt? I honestly think I don't understand why you think it's the Democrats that did it or how they defeated themselves. But yeah, the answer is to make the wealthy pay their fair share. It's not that we don't have the money. I think there are two things we can do. One, we need to reprioritize how we spend our money, and we need to reprioritize how we tax our money. We have, over the last 40 years, we have steadily shifted the burden of taxes from the wealthy to the poor and from the wealthy to the middle class. And I know that you'll see these things that say, like, oh, the top 10% pay 50% of all our taxes and stuff like that. But that's skewed in so many ways. Not the least of which is they're just looking at federal income taxes. They're not looking at Social Security taxes. They're not looking at property taxes. They're not looking at sales taxes. All of these kinds of taxes are regressive. And the federal government, what happens is when they want to cut spending, they'll do things like they will cut school spending. They'll cut spending for the education department, right? So then what that does is it doesn't make it cheaper to run your school. It shifts the onus onto the state and local governments to pay for that school. So then they have to allocate more funding for that. And then that funding is coming out of property taxes. It's coming out of sales taxes, which are more regressive spending, are more regressive taxes. So what it does is it takes this money used to be, come from rich people, but now it goes to poor. Now it comes from poor people. And so we've slowly, for the last 40 years, been flattening out our tax rates. While we're cutting spending, it affects revenue. And there's some, hocus pocus that gets done with, oh, well, we have revenues gone up in the last 10 years. And it's like, well, this is because the economy has grown over the last 10 years. When you look at revenue in terms of, and when you look at revenue relative to the size of the economy, revenue has actually gone down because taxes have gone down. But they've gone down more for the wealthy than the poor. And they've cut the spending to things like Medicare, Medicaid, everything that goes to poor people. And then that means that money doesn't get put into the economy. There's something called a multiplier effect. And when you give a poor person money, it tends to have like much more value than if you give a rich person more money. It has a much higher multiplier. Like the SNAP benefits tend to have a multiplier of like $1.70, whereas like tax cuts to billionaires have a multiplier of like 70.70. So that means it actually takes money out of the economy to tax them or to cut their taxes. It actually reduces the amount of money available in the economy versus a multiplier where it increases the amount of money available in the economy. This is so there's a lot of stuff that goes on. It's a complicated economic situation, but certainly stopping doing what we're doing is one way to get out of it. We did not get into the debt by taxing and spending. We got into the size of debt by taxing less and spending more on things we don't necessarily need to spend it on. When Reagan when Carter was in the White House, the national debt was $600 billion. Believe it or not, the debt, not the deficit, the debt. Ronald Reagan came in, he slashed taxes and he spiked military spending. And those two things are what caused the national debt to start going up. I think it quadrupled while he was in office. And then everybody wants to blame it on the Democrats. But go and look at history. Reagan cut taxes and increased defense spending, and the debt went up. Bush cut taxes and increased defense spending, and the debt went up. Trump decreased or cut taxes for the wealthy and increased defense spending, and the debt went up. Maybe it's time we started looking at reality instead of talking points. What we need to do is we need to reallocate how we spend our money. We need to spend less money on defense, And if there's anything good about this Iran war, it's showing us that you can have a nimble military, more than capable of defending itself, with a lot less money. I was thinking today about the Revolutionary War. And what was interesting about the Revolutionary War is England, sorry, Harry, had this old way of fighting where they would, line up in these columns and rows, and they would march, and then they would, that's how war had been fought for the last, couple of 100 years. That's the way of fighting that had conquered the world. That's why the sun never set on the British Empire. And then the American revolutionaries had this kind of guerrilla style warfare. They didn't line up to be shot. They were creative. And that's how we won a war against the mightiest military in the world, with, really what was kind of a ragtag bunch of, people that didn't even have military training. We changed the way the warfare was fought. And that's what's happening in Ukraine right now. And that's what's happening in Iran right now, is they're showing us that warfare is being fought in newer ways. And we're sitting there trying to shoot down $20,000 drones with $20 million missiles. And so we cannot just keep spending money like this. So why don't we just make the shift and spend less money on our military and do it more intelligently, instead of spending billions of dollars on stupid cosmetic changes on our battleships like Trump wants to do? So I think we can maintain our military integrity and cut spending on that, and then use that extra money to do things like help with health insurance, and help with food costs for the poor, and make it so that we're spending money on stuff that has a higher multiplier effect. Anyway, I'm sorry if that got a little long-winded, but so there we go. I saw later on in your comment you explain what you meant by that question. So when I get there, sorry to go so long. We don't now. Oh, they got rid of that in 73. I was there from 74 to 76. I see Trump thinks vaccines are soda bottle sized. Yeah, his dementia is mixing up McDonald's orders. Next thing he'll claim he got a side of fries and a toy with his diet. I even have people arguing with me about the whole soda bottle thing. Like, yes, we do. They just, some of these MAGAs will just run with any stupid thing that Stephen Miller and the Screeching Banshees will say, and they just run with it. They don't even bother finding out if it's true or not. And if you believe them, oh, who told you that, CNN? Perhaps planned obsolescence should be illegal. Products should be built so they can be upgraded. Raise taxes on billionaires and corporations. Why is your tax rate 36%? That's so low. It is so low. And then people are like acting like if you raise it, then people are going to move to other countries. Like, where are you going to move? You could raise it and still have the lowest tax rate in the world. For the top, you raise it significantly. And that 36% is kind of fake anyway. The real billionaires, they don't even pay 3.6%. And they don't pay income on, they don't live off their income. Their income tax is kind of irrelevant because that's not what they live off of. They live off of their wealth. Remember during COVID, just get some bleach inside. Yeah. That was, and then they tried to, he didn't say bleach. He said disinfectants or whatever. And it's like, if you look at his whole answer, he talked about bleach right before and right after. He literally did. It's like the oh, if you just look at this, as though in Mr. Word Salad, you gotta, if you really pay attention to his words, and but like then they get really exact, and like in this particular paragraph, he didn't say the word bleach. But then when he goes on these word salad nonsensical rambling things, well, what he meant to say, our top rate is 45. Our top rate is 45. Yeah. And I don't think you guys have all the tax loopholes we have either. Also for the yeah. We definitely could change our tax structure for the better. I had a GE dryer die on the last day of warranty. Now that's planned. That's planned well. Because they were interested in getting rid of tax loopholes rather than the tax breaks. Tax rates. Well, they got rid of both. They lowered both and they got rid of tax loopholes. Well, and they didn't get rid of actually they didn't get rid of tax loopholes. The tax loopholes are still there. Elon Musk is not paying money in taxes. I don't know what tax loopholes you're talking about. They're creating tax loopholes. They're mad if like billionaires have to, like, when they die and their children might have to pay some taxes on the inheritance. What I meant by okay, so now we're back to this. What I meant by Democrats defeating themselves is I don't think they had a very strong candidates with Kamala and Waltz too far left. Okay, first of all, they'd never talked about trans women and what is a woman and stuff like that. That was all just smears from the right. It had nothing at all to do with their campaigns. Secondly, nobody ever even talked about what Kamala's policies were. A lot of people still don't even know that she had policies, and she didn't run on trans people and stuff. Number three, why is it so important to some people just to like make everything about trans people? Like, like what are we supposed to do? Go, okay, we're just going to concede that this people shouldn't have rights because the right is trying, the fascists want to take away rights for some people. We're just going to go, okay, yeah, you just go ahead and take away those rights because other fascists are like for it. No, I don't. If I'm going to defend the marginalized, no matter what, whether they're, I'm a cisgender straight white male. And as a cisgender straight white male, I will defend the rights of women. I will defend the rights of trans people. I will defend the rights of gay people. And I will defend the rights of minorities. And I will defend the rights of women. I don't take other people's existence as a threat to my own. But the straight white, the cisgender straight white male, they're a threat to virtually every group of people as a whole, not in the specifics. George Washington fought like a gorilla. Red quotes weren't prepared. I am assuming this was a text-to-speech thing, and you meant GURERILLA, not gorilla. But I agree with you. He did. They didn't. They were not ready for that guerrilla warfare. No, it's long live the king now. Are you talking about your king or our king? In these days, the Lord exhorts his beloved children to enter the new land. I have no idea what you're talking about. Iran said they're going to run out of the clock till Trump's term is over. So now Trump is trying to relax nuke feelings. He's dying to use them. Even MTG said it today. Oh, and he's talking about bombing Oman. I don't know why he's deciding that bombing Oman is is now necessarily. Did you hear about that one, Brett? I bet you did. He threatened to bomb Oman today because, hey, why not? And now there's this, hang on. There's this it's kind of funny. I think I want to say Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey made a pact, like a sort of a NATO type pact, where if you attack any one of them, then you attack all of them, and they will all come to the defense. Well, this is important because Pakistan has nukes. So why are they making this treaty all of a sudden? Do you think it might be because Donald Trump is a warmonger and they don't want to get attacked? So Donald Trump is sitting there making these peace agreements while Saudi Arabia, but Saudi Arabia is trying to make sure that the U.S. isn't going to attack them. Yeah, those were never real issues. Yeah, the trans thing was never a real issue. The only ones that made it a real issue were the Republicans. And honestly, I think if the Democrats made a mistake when it came to trans people, is they should have been more vociferous in defending them and presenting our other side instead of just rolling over and ignoring it. You never saw either one of them actually addressing the issue. It's like the whole communist thing now. That's the problem with the media. The media lets Republicans just run roughshod, say whatever they want. And then a Democrat says pi is 3.14. And they're like, well, actually, what about the digits that come after 4? Fact check. There are more digits that come after 4. Donald Trump says pi is 11. And they're just like, well, that's just Trump being Trump. And the French and Spanish and Dutch ran the America's Rescue. Yeah, well, we definitely had some allies there. And yes. And the American strategy was to make the war financially and politically unsustainable rather than actually win on the battlefield. Kind of like what Iran is doing right now. I see you're a little sensitive on this issue, Harry. Hi, that sucks. I often wonder why people buy the digital parts. Seems they could be cued or programmed to break or fail if they know when a part will break. Oh yeah, he's talking about the hair dryer. Yeah, it's almost like, okay, like on the day, I've actually had stuff like within a week, but I don't know if I've had it actually happen on his day. Maybe so, but they still focus. They didn't focus on that though. They didn't. Like go and find me an ad where Kamala Harris is talking about trans people. Like they didn't focus on it at all. The Republicans focused on it. If anything, we should have fought back on it. We should have pushed back on it and said things like, the Republicans have submitted more pieces of legislation to prevent trans women in sports than there are trans women in sports. Why are they focused on those things when they should be presenting an actual alternative to how they could improve the economy? Why do they want, I think there's an actual case to be made there. Over 40% of trans teens try to commit suicide while they're in high school. Did you know that? 40%. 40%, that is a huge number. And the number one thing in reducing that suicide rate is acceptance. So instead of worrying about all this fictional stuff about, like Bobby goes to, like the second grade Bobby goes to school, a boy, and comes home Sally, because the teachers like herded him away into an operating room, convinced him he was trans, and then turned him into a girl. And it's kind of nonsensical gibberish that Donald Trump and the Republicans were going on. They should have just said, trans, gender dysphoria is a real condition, and maybe we should let the doctors actually determine what they're doing here instead of having politicians make our medical decisions for us. No, his dementia is him projecting his own fluid bag of medicine treatment he is getting. That's actually a good word. That's a good way to describe Trump. Fluid bag. Donald Trump is a fluid bag. I could slash DOD budget in half and make an even more effective force, and they would finally pass an audit. And and we would actually know where all the money is going. Good point. I would also point out that the British government gave the U.S. very favorable independence terms that it didn't have to give. Huh. Harry, thank you. I just want to say thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you for letting us win. Did you see the back shot of his diaper yesterday? His pants were so damn puffy. It looked like a full load or even a toilet in there. I was thinking, remember how he talks about how many flushes it takes for him to, like it takes 7 flushes or whatever. I'm wondering if he's flushing his full diapers down. And that's why it's taking so many flushes. If billionaires even only paid 5%, it would generate $2 trillion a year. That's little to no taxes for the working class, and the free healthcare and new schools and infrastructure and no national debt. I figured this out. If you were to tax just the wealth increase of the billionaires, then not tax their income, not do a wealth tax on how much wealth they have, just how much their wealth increased from one year to the next. And you were to do that, the top 10 billionaires in the country, just the top 10 billionaires in the country, if you taxed their wealth increase at the same rate that you tax the average median taxpayer's income tax, then you would more than offset all of the SNAP benefit cuts combined in just in 1 year. Like they act like the rich are paying their fair share. What do I mean when I say paying their fair share? I mean paying their fair share instead of just trying to get by with this. Well, they pay this percent of their income. Well, like Elon Musk does not live off his income, you clown. Not you, a clown, WT. I mean the imaginary clown I was arguing with just now. POTUS should resign for ruining the world economy. Among other things, digital dryers, not parts. Did I tell you about the time Rudy Giuliani? I don't know. Anyway, Rudy Giuliani blocked me. As long as we're on the subject of hair, Rudy Giuliani blocked me because I asked him if he would die for Trump, but I spelled die with a D-Y-E. George Washington was not a good general. He was a brilliant leader, but not a good general on the battlefield. Harry, we've moved on, buddy. We've moved on. It was the high temp sensor. Replaced it myself. So you're good at electronic stuff, aren't you, Brett? Donald Trump is a pedophile, allegedly. Hang on 1 second. I need to ask just give me 1 second. Had to send my wife a message. Needed her to bring something in for me. AIPAC wanted Trump back in and gave the DNC their marching orders. That's why the Biden and Harris campaigns never had a real chance. I think it's connected to that somewhat. But I would say I think one of the biggest things that happened is, first of all, that the Biden and Harris campaign had to come up with a position that Trump never did, right? Or the Harris, not the Biden Harris campaign, but the Harris Walz campaign. He could just come out and 100% and say, things like, we're gonna make them spill a gallon of blood for every drop they shed, right? He could just lean all the way into genocide. Then Biden is trying to toe the line and say things, like he's actually trying to negotiate a peace agreement. And when she did, by the way, remember when he left, there was a ceasefire going on that was more effective than the ceasefire that's going on right now. And before, like, another million or so people got run out of Lebanon, or run out of their homes in Lebanon. And I'm not saying that things were good in the Gaza Strip under Biden. I'm saying they weren't as bad. I'm not even going to say they were better. They were just less bad. I think there was no way he could win at that point. As soon as October 7th happened, there was no way he could win. Because if he comes out too strongly in favor of Gaza, then he's against Israel. And if he comes out too strongly in favor of Israel, then he's, like Genocide Joe. There was no middle ground. Either way, like you can't, no matter what you say, no matter how carefully you phrase it, no matter how carefully you frame it, you're going to have one side or the other try and misrepresent what's going on. And so there's like talk about, well, just have defensive weapons. Well, there's no such thing as weapons that can only be used defensively. And so then, like, Harris and Walz were not left enough. There were plenty of people that criticized Harris for letting Cheney endorse her. America was far more left during FDR. Both parties are far too right-leaning. And I think there is something there that, people are talking about, like the DSA and whatnot. There is a significant portion of the American electorate which is to the left of either party. And part of that left votes Democrat unenthusiastically because the alternative is fascism. But they're not happy about the choices. You want to know, like, if you want to know the Democrat that can run for president, that has generated the most enthusiasm. I'm not talking about leading in polls and stuff like that. But the Democrat that has generated the most enthusiasm is AOC. I mean, I'm not saying she has the best chance to win, but she has generated the most enthusiasm. There are some others that are really articulate and really argue the Democratic case well, like John Ossoff and Pete Buttigieg. There are some that have the clap back down, like Gavin Newsom. But when it comes to like getting people excited, nobody is that's AOC's territory. She's kind of on her own there. Tax. Oh, you're talking about the 50s? I don't know enough about tax law in the 50s to agree or disagree. I was talking about in the 80s, 90s, and like since the 80s. That the loopholes have been generated more than cut, and they always talk about how they need to get rid of the loopholes, and then what they do is they create loopholes as they get rid of them. allegedly. Doesn't pay to be an ally anymore. Yeah, all those people that were like all those corporations that were allies. Here's the thing, like I was an ally before it was cool to be an ally, and I stopped calling myself an ally. I never called myself an ally at all, but like the whole thing, about being an ally is just so patronizing and so kind of condescending. I always felt it was just like and I struggle with how to like actually be an ally. Um because I don't know what it's like to be black. I'm just going to be honest. I can't know what it's like to be black, and I can't know what it's like to be a woman. So like as you know, my name is Kelly, and for about the first 10 years I was writing in the NBA, and I was writing for Bleacher Report. I didn't I my emoji, or my little icon thing was a little dog that looked like a loaf of bread on a cutting board, and I said he's a purebred, and I intentionally left it nondiscreet so that you couldn't tell what gender I was by my pick. Because what happened is a lot of people would assume I was a woman, right? I'd be talking about basketball, and people would assume I was a woman, and then they would say, "You're a woman, what do you know?" And then somebody, like I'd point out, "No, I'm a man." And they would get, "Okay, well maybe you do know what you're talking about." Like it's amazing that just the addition of a penis somehow made my basketball knowledge more acceptable, even though I was saying the exact same thing. But I left it that way because that's the only way that I could even have a remote idea of what it was like to be a woman. And that's just one kind of discrimination in one particular setting. And I didn't have to worry about people grabbing my ass when I walked past. So, but at least I had a notion, that a reminder that women have to deal with crap men don't have to. And then you see people, Obama only won because he's black. What a ridiculous statement. This is the exact words he would bomb the poop out of them. He actually has gone cold on South Korea. Oh, yes. So now he's all mad that South Korea won't come join him in Iran. He's like, thinks that if he decides that we're going to war in Iran, Europe has to, any ally of ours around the world is supposedly has to come and to our aid. And you compare that to this, I just now kind of occurs to me how this is the opposite of what George H.W. Bush did, right? George H.W. Bush, everything was the opposite. Iraq invaded Kuwait, and so then George W. Bush said, "No, you can't do that. Nations have rights to their own existence, and you can't just go around invading other countries willy-nilly." And so he got the UN, he got the entire world to come together in Iraq, push Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait, and then say, "All right, now that you're back over there, war is over." And it's such a dramatic difference, right? He united the world to defend a nation's right to exist. Donald Trump wants to just annul a nation's right to exist unilaterally and then act like the whole world is supposed to get behind him in doing it. And I am not a Republican, and I am no like I met George H.W. Bush, marched in a parade for him when I was in Italy. I shook his hand, and I was like, "Nice to meet you, Mr. President." And he said, "Thank you for marching in this parade." I was like, "Oh, it's an honor to be in a parade for the president." And he says, "Did you vote for me?" I said, "No, sir. I voted for Dukakis." I was like, "But I'm still proud to I'm still proud to march in the parade for my president." And he said, "Well, good for you for participating, and doing your duty in voting," something like that. And it was a cordial conversation we had. And it was just crazy. It was just crazy. But I didn't vote for him. I didn't like him. I did, but I will say this: he did two things right. He did increase the taxes a little bit, or he added the new taxes. No new taxes. Remember, it lost him the election. The other thing he did was the first Gulf War, which is the only war that we have participated in where I can agree with it, because he was defending a nation's right to exist. This is what we should have done with Ukraine. No one trusts the U.S. anymore because Trump lies, and that's true. That's true. How can you trust Trump? Trump won't even keep his own deals. Trump broke a deal. He brokered a deal with Mexico and Canada, and then he broke the deal with Mexico and Canada. And he insulted the deal. When he made the deal, he called it the greatest thing ever. When he broke the deal, it was stupid. Hang on. Uh, just where exactly is Marco Rubio? Where in the world is Marco Rubio? Did the Secretary of State please explain our foreign policy? I think it's interesting. I have not heard a peep from him since he got sent to the decoy plane. Oh my God. Oman offered to be a neutral mediator, which they have done several times for several different wars in the region. And so his response was, if they get in the way, he will bomb the crap out of them. And they have been mediating. This man is a horrible human being. And he thinks that he's not content to be king of America. He wants to be king of the world. Yeah, the 1950s tax myth of 90% before the closing of tax loopholes was closer to 41% tax loopholes were civil. Yes. So that's true. Like, no, they were never paying 90%, but they still were paying more. And there are still tax loopholes. But we have steadily since Reagan, the overall tax burden has steadily flattened out. And yeah, so needed that. Pretty darn stupid. North Korea has been unthreatening. Oh yes, unthreat. And he talked about how great Kim was. He's a nice guy. He's always been nice to me. I even have a love letter that he wrote me that I stole from the U.S. government. POTUS is like a petulant child when he's confronted with serious questions. Did you see his response to the CNN reporter today? Just ugly. Just misogynistic and ugly. Shut up. He's telling her to shut up. His stick is blame the Democrats for his own messes. He doesn't like the Democrats because they won't bow to him. He doesn't like anybody that won't bow to him. And the way that they look at it, anybody that, it's not just that he doesn't like the Democrats because they won't bow to him. By the same sort of logic that they have, and I use the word logic very, very loosely, anybody that doesn't bow to him is therefore a Democrat. Get money out of politics. Shut off the revolving door between industry lobbyists and public servants like congressional aides and congressmen. I agree. If you ever get a chance, there was a documentary on GE back in the 80s. And there's something called an iron triangle, where it's like between lobbyists, the government workers, and businesses. So it's like you go and you lobby for your business, for the industry, right? You lobby for GE to get government contracts, and then the corporation goes ahead and funds your campaign. So then you become a congressperson and you pass all the laws that GE wants you to pass, right? And then GE, then you step down from Congress after a few terms, and then you get appointed to the board of the company. And this stuff would cycle around. You could, like, be a representative, like you can be on the board of the company, and then you get appointed some government position by the executive branch, and you work in the government for a while under a certain president. And then you go and you get paid millions and millions of dollars to be a lobbyist for the same company. It all circulates around, but this sort of iron triangle, it's called. I think let me see if so there was a documentary on it, that the Iron Triangle, Willits Point, and the Remaking of New York. Oh no, that's not that one. This was yes, Deadly Deception. General Electric, Nuclear Weapons in Our Environment. And if that won an Academy Award for Best Documentary. And if you ever really, really want to get pissed off, just Google Iron Triangle 80s documentary, GE or something like that. You'll find it. It is, if you just want to be pissed off, watch that documentary. And government has not changed much since then. The players have changed, but the game is the same. It's actually probably worse now than it's ever been with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the marshiest marsh of all the marshes in the history of marshes in all of marshdom. He is the most corrupt. I even heard one person describe him as not only the most corrupt president in American history, but arguably the most corrupt person in all of human history. And it was like a historian. It wasn't some, Stephen Miller just shouting propaganda. He's still blaming Biden for his depletion of missiles due to the current Iran war, which isn't a war, which is a conflict, which is a war. And the thing about the whole, the weapons that we gave to Ukraine were funded to be replaced before we even sent the weapons. That was like years ago, and we've had time to replenish that supply. Number one. Number two, and I feel like this cannot be emphasized enough, they're not the same thing. Those munitions are not the munitions we are running out of. It's like, let's say you're going to make some chicken soup, and you got the vegetables and you got the chicken, right? And you get all the vegetables ready to go, but you're sitting there chomping on them the whole time that you're making the soup. You eat all the vegetables. And then, never mind. I can't. I was hoping that this analogy would come together in my head. It's not working. Sorry. But Donald Trump's, like, the stuff we ran out of is not the stuff Trump is using. Or it's not the stuff that Biden used. It's a different, entirely different kind of munitions. I mean, they have been deploying troops to Ukraine and negotiating treaties with Russia to break their dependence on China. Iran has? Who are you saying is deploying troops to Ukraine? Or North Korea? Or no? Oh, no, okay. North Korea is deploying troops to Ukraine to help Russia. Gotcha. Yes. It's almost like we're stuck in the Star Trek mirror universe. Yeah, that's the one with the evil Spock and evil Kirk. Yes, and evil Spock and evil Kirk are sitting there saying that, like, good Spock and good Kirk, they're the opposite. They're the mirror universe. Some of these talking points from the right are just like so upside down that it's like, just, have you ever read a book, Stephen? They're literally busy not sat there in the divine aura of Donald Trump. Kim Jong-un is playing Trump like China, Israel, etc. Yeah, all the despot, authoritarian dictator types have learned to play Trump. Bibi plays Trump. Kim plays Trump. Putin plays Trump. All you have to do to play Trump is tell him he's awesome. And if you tell him he's awesome, he'll do whatever you tell him to. Because Trump has daddy issues. What was the opposite of the Justice League? The Legion of Doom, yes. Except maybe with Trump, we can call him the Legion of Do. The Legion of Doo-Doo. Trump, because he has the aforementioned diapers. Trump knows the trans thing triggers his base. But I think that there's a difference. I don't think it works anymore. It's one thing to, like, sit there and get your, because as much as they, like, complained about the economy and stuff, the power of your dollar actually went up under Biden. Or, like, you had more buying power when Biden left than when Biden took office. And I'm not talking about this as a talking point. I'm just talking about it as a matter of fact. Like, income went up faster than inflation, even though inflation went up over the last 3 years. There was just that one brief spike for only a couple of months that had nothing to do with Biden, but all the economy, other than that spike, was actually really strong under Biden. And so people, I'm not, whether he didn't get the credit he deserves for it and stuff, but people, they were like, the economy was politicized, but people were able to go to the store and buy their hamburger meat. They didn't have to settle for chicken like Brett had to do today. They weren't having to pay $300 for a tariff charge on their Amazon order. That was like $200, like Brett had to do. Like, The actual reality versus the rhetoric was not there. Like people's lived experiences is they weren't actually having as much trouble surviving as Trump told them they were. But Trump could tell them they were, and they would believe him because they believed everything Trump said. And then he could say things like, oh, it's all trans people. It's all trans people and communists and stuff like that. But now he can't blame trans people. He kicked all the trans people out of the military. He kicked them out of women's sports in college, all 5 of them. And didn't do anything for grocery prices. So I don't think that the trans issues are going to work anymore because there never were any trans issues, and doing all this anti-trans stuff has not helped anybody pay for their groceries. I was reading about there was this family in Colorado. Energy prices are up so much they couldn't pay their electricity bill, so their electricity got cut off. And was like a family of like 2 parents, 2 kids, and 2 dogs. I want to say, it might have been 3 kids. Anyway, they died. They all died of heat stroke in their house. They just died because they couldn't pay for their electricity. So stuff like that happens, right? That is real experiences that people are having. People are having their electricity cut off in the middle of the hottest summer on record. People, and which makes the whole, oh well, it was freezing today. What happened to climate change and global warming? So I think when people are going to the grocery store and having to buy chicken instead of beef, they're not thinking, oh, those stupid trans people. If only trans people weren't in sports. So it had power because there was actually enough firmness to the economy that you could convince people that there wasn't, and that it was other people's fault. But they weren't having to settle. So it was other people's economy, not their economy. And when it's Donald Trump's policies are making them settle for chicken instead of beef, and they haven't had any direct contact with any trans people. Fully loaded stuff like a baked potato. Never put the image of a loaded baked potato with Donald Trump's diapers again, please, because I like my loaded baked potatoes. 7, maybe he's got one. Oh yes, am I that far behind? Are we 3:31? Well, I'm half an hour behind. my hick impression sounded like Hank Hill. Do you know that Trump has a dedicated groom of the stool? I know that in the they had a diaper guy back in the. All right, so I'm gonna. Okay, Donald is not allegedly any longer. Now that he has to officially and has run out of the stall tactics paying. Yes, the Supreme Court shut the nonsense down again. All right, so I'm going to scroll down. See, okay. AOC couldn't win the presidency, though she is a brilliant politician, but not a president. I'm not trying to say she is or isn't. I'm saying that she right now is generating the most excitement because she is generating enthusiasm from a group of people that have felt shut out of American politics. Yeah, I knew what you meant. A Bernie AOC ticket, that would be amazing. Bernie as a president, AOC is. No, no, no. Bernie is like another octogenarian. We need to like just enough old men. Yeah, Bernie Sanders is going to be 85. No, we don't need to go from an octogenarian to a nonagenarian. Um, I think that the Democratic president or the Democratic nominee for president should be whoever wins the Democratic primaries, and let people run based on what they want to do, and then let the Democrats, not the party, decide who they want to run. If the Democrats want a moderate, then run a moderate. If the Democrats want somebody a little to the further to the left, run that person. But I'm so tired of like pundits and experts and this whole notion of who is more electable and stuff trying to decide our elections. Don't worry about who's more electable. Whoever's more the most electable person is the person that can get enough votes in the primary to win the primary. There is so much like Mamdani won New York. And he didn't win New York barely. He won New York. I mean, he like there was he won a majority against a former governor and a former mayor, and an incumbent mayor. He was the little guy. You know how he won? He got, I think it was, he had like boots on the ground, like for one out of every 100 New Yorkers or some insane number of people. Excitement can win elections. Excitement won it for Obama in 2008. Yeah. I mean, for an 85-year-old man, Bernie Sanders is sharp, but he's still an 85-year-old man. Kelly for Prez. In the words of George Carville, I would not want to run a country that was dumb enough to elect me as president. I honestly, I could not do the job. I know my limits. Back in the day, I would have like when I was younger, I could have like I wouldn't have mind being like an advisor or like a chief of staff or something. But with a smile like this, I'm never getting elected anyway. But number two is I couldn't handle the stress. He wants to bomb the poop out of Oman for getting in the way, but he didn't blink when Netanyahu got in the way. Yep, blink an eye. Hey, Kitty, how you doing today? Love one. Okay, why does love like kill so many people, Looney? Booney? Maybe I think he wants to be. Oh, does he want to be Pope now too? Maybe he wants to replace Jesus as king. I don't like Trump, but anti-Trump is so. What does anti-Trump mean? And what do you mean it's so virulently cultish? What and ignorant? What is ignorant? This kind of anti-Trump stuff is usually just pro-Trump people trying to disguise their Trumpness. No, you just always were a Trump blowhard, and now you can't admit it. Sick of that. Brett says, "You're not even real, so fornicate off." Yeah, these kind of it could be a bot, it could be a troll, but it's honestly somebody that's not engaged. Anti-Trump. Yes, yes. I'm anti-Trump because I don't think murder is okay. I'm anti-Trump because I don't think we should pay people that beat police officers trying to overthrow the country. Penn State awards its $1 million degree. University is the first in Pennsylvania and only the third in the U.S. to reach that total. What do you mean awards its $1 million degree? I don't know what that means. Uh, I'm with Brett. I just cannot stand this. Oh, both sides. Just people that hate Trump are just as bad as people that support him. No, we're not. We're rationally thinking. It's like if somebody is against slavery and somebody is pro-slavery, what is like? Does that mean that you're like the middle ground is indentured servitude? And so that unless you're for indentured servitude, forced indentured servitude, then you're just like an extremist. Like the middle ground is not always the moderate. The moderate is anti-slavery. Like I did. Oh, this. And the Democrats aren't perfect. I don't think they're perfect, but I don't think they're literal Nazis. Did you hear about the new army or the military is going to seize all this land and they're going to use it for like some sort of, I don't know what they're going to do with it. Something to do with rounding up immigrants or something. They're literally just going full on concentration camp. And it doesn't matter who you are, what your history is, whether or not you're even an American citizen anymore. If you're a brown person, you're going to end up in a concentration camp somewhere. We're heading in that direction. Just as the rest of the world goes to hell and Somali pirates return. Pirates boarded a ship off of Somalia today. At least 4 other ships are being held for ransom. That happened in Rocky Mount. Oh, Rocky, not okay. I got confused on, like I was Rockies, not. I was thinking Rocky Mount, North Carolina, not the Rockies. And their dogs died too. Meanwhile, the city council members owed $30,000 and were allowed to go unpaid. Thank you, Wake. Yeah, I mean, that's right, but you're right. It was North Carolina. I misremembered that. Wow. I'm expecting to have my power cut around January or February. Rent is $38.50 a month. Wow, I live alone. Power isn't getting cheaper. That's insane. Brett, do you run a data center? I sold my home and moved to the city for convenience. Wow. Well, that's not working out very conveniently. My area is highly sought after. So, can you just move? Ay, ay, ay. Oh, 1 million students have earned degrees. Okay. I see what you're. I was like, what are you talking? I was thinking like a degree costs $1 million. Now I was like, that can't be right. Your rent is double my mortgage. And this is the thing: is like rent. Rent is not something that builds wealth. Mortgages are. What's the link for, Kitty? I can't open links here. Yeah, I used to have a home and yard, all the toys, but distance drove me nuts. Yeah. If you live in a metro area like Chicago or Los Angeles or New York, it's like a good like 30% of your life is spent driving, and it's just so taxing. or you can like use uh public transportation. But man, if you ever had to wait in Chicago for a train or a bus, and it's like the wind is like icy and it's blasting in your face and your teeth are freezing to your spit is freezing to your teeth and your eyeballs are freezing shut, it really really sucks. All right, so here's the thing I wanted to talk about. um so can't get this, I wish. All right, so oh, that's what I did. I've been warning about this for a while, and now we've got some returns coming in. How is mass deportations impacting the economy? And it's pretty real and it's pretty serious. These are, if some studies have come out from like Brookings Institute and Wharton and whatnot, and there's a link. I think I left a link in the description column, or in the description box, for the where they went through and they compiled these studies, and these are some numbers of what has happened with Trump's mass deportations. All right, and these aren't necessarily cause and effect, but I was saying if you do this, this will be the result, and they did this, and that's the result. So I think there's some serious reason to believe that there is some cause and effect. All right, so let's look through some of this just in case. This is the that's the study, um, and it's America's Voice and the ICE tax, a report on the everyday cost of mass deportation. So this is not trying to be, like not have an opinion on it, but the underlying data that they use to make their argument is very solid. And I want to just go through some of these numbers and discuss them. So, since Trump has become president, over 185,000 people have been arrested by ICE. 117,000 people have been deported as of May 2026. So it's actually probably more than that now. 59,000 people are in ICE detention, and we've spent or funded ICE $170.7 billion. Right? So we spent $170 billion on deporting 117,000 people. And seems like just on the surface, that is not a very efficient use of our money. But anyway, what has been the impact? We have lost $668,000 jobs, just lost in local communities due to ICE detention. Now, some people are like saying, well, these are government jobs or whatever, on, like on my, I posted this meme on Facebook. This is like the Brookings Institute and Wharton that have done these studies. So they've kind of thought, oh yeah, what about jobs? This is the 668,000 jobs lost are not the total number of jobs lost while Trump was president. These are directly connected to, these jobs are lost as a direct result of mass deportations. And a lot of people don't seem to understand that just because you deport an illegal immigrant that's working in a roofing company does not mean that, he was taking up a job an American wanted. He was actually taking up a job that no Americans wanted, but that an American employer needed. And then when you take away that worker, and you take, if they make, if 40% of a roofing company's employers or employees are undocumented immigrants and you take them away, the other 60% of people that were American citizens or had their green cards or whatever that were working legally, they lose their jobs too, because you take away 40% of the labor, you take away that business. And then you don't only just take away their business, you also take away the tiles that business was buying from Home Depot or whatever. And you take away all the other material they were buying from Home Depot or whatever. And so those companies that were making that money, they start having to lay people off. And Lowe's has to lay off people because they're not selling as much stuff. So there's this ripple effect. And we think of, like you can't just, there's not an economy for undocumented immigrants and then an economy for everybody else. Undocumented immigrants actually have a positive impact on the economy. And I'm not just talking about taxes. I'm talking about the actual economy, because they actually do things. Like when they get paid to roof, they put roofs on. And when they get paid to process meat, the meat gets processed. That means the meat gets sold. Don't think that those increased beef prices are distinct from not having undocumented immigrants in those processing facilities anymore. I've been telling you that beef prices were going to go up because of that. And lo and behold, looks like I was right. And so of the 668,000 jobs that were lost, somewhere between 51,000 and 297,000 of those jobs were held by U.S. born workers, not just legal people, but actual U.S. born American citizens. And it has cost the U.S. economy somewhere between 3 to 14 billion in lost business spending due to enforcement. And then lettuce prices have increased 32.1%. This was before the whole Taco Bell diarrhea stuff. It's of May. Fruits and vegetable prices have increased 5.3%. So these are the things that, where the crops that can't be automated that were heavily dependent on immigrant labor. Don't think that, it's just a coincidence that these prices went up right as we started deporting all the people that were doing all this work. The work doesn't get done. Instead, the food just rots on the farm, and then the farmer loses their business, and then the trucker loses his business, and then the grocery stores don't have the produce to sell. And so the price of food goes up, and people get hungry. And then another huge one is the 15.4% new home prices up in the Northeast, and that is not just due to undocumented immigrants, but when you look at 40% of the new construction homes are built by undocumented immigrants. Well, you take those out, it's going to make the high price of homes go up, because you're going to have to end up paying more, not just because undocumented immigrants were making less, but as there are fewer workers and there are fewer companies that have to pay more money, some companies start going under, but it drives the price of homes up. So let me come back here. So anyway, that's the meme there. Kelly, what's the latest at Big Bend? I haven't heard anything new on Big Bend. I know they started to bulldoze over irreplaceable ancient trees, etc., without approval. Of course they did. I hear it's anti-vehicle barriers. No vehicle can get there. worth. It's fine. The market will fix itself. Okay, maybe it will, maybe it won't, but it's still going to take time. And why does it, like, you break something and you just go, oh, it'll just fix itself. Why break it in the first place? Why sit around and like let the economy go into a recession instead of fixing it? Due to shifting trends, Americans will fill out the positions they don't want before. The reason they don't want us because of low wages, which illegal immigrants will gladly take. Well, the illegal immigrants will gladly take the jobs that Americans don't want. Americans don't want those jobs, not just because they're low wages. Those are like, there's always going to be a job that Americans want the least, that is going to be the hardest to fill up. And those are the jobs that illegal immigrants are always going to want to take. So why not, instead of, like they say, steer into the skid, right? Why not steer into the skid? Why not make it so that immigrants can actually take those jobs legally? Then you can do more to protect those workers. You can do more to protect the American workers that are currently doing those jobs. You can do more to protect the industries. And then that will drive down prices for those industries. It will ensure, like production is there. And you give these immigrants a way to have a pathway to citizenship. Right now, only like 2% of the world can even has a way to come over to America legally. This nonsense. Oh, well, why don't they just come over here legally? Because they can't. There's no avenue to do that. Now, a lot of these things, it's not just that they don't want that they want higher wages, dude, or dudette. I don't know if you're a dude or a dudette, but and then don't sit there and tell me educate yourself when you're just because you're repeating rhetoric that some ignorant right-wing podcaster told you. I'm not talking off this is Wharton, this is the Brookings Institute that I'm talking about here. They actually know what they're talking about. Wharton knows what it's talking about. Don't educate yourself. Don't say educate yourself when I know more than you. Higher wages means higher prices because the company owner is not going to take less money. Many have been saying millionaires and billionaires don't. I think there's this notion that the people who hire undocumented immigrants are these rich, wealthy people that are taking advantage of the workers. It's actually not always the case. There are some cases like that, but some people like just didn't go to college so that they could go out in the field and pick strawberries and do like the really hard menial labor. Some people can't do it, like physically can't do it. It's backbreaking work. But and then there's also like, oh yes, Americans just don't want these really, really crappy paying jobs where they have to work their butts off, 70 hours a week to make ends meet. They're too lazy. It's their fault. Like, okay, if that's the issue, make it so that they have a working wage. Make it so that they have like better safety nets. Instead, we're sitting there, we're slashing even like basic workers' comp laws and stuff like that. Nope, wages have to. I'm not saying wages don't need to increase. I'm saying that they don't that those jobs are not getting filled because of like wages are not the main reason those jobs are getting filled. I'm saying like there's a whole host of reasons. And just saying, well, if they paid more, how are they going to pay more? You've already got, did you know that like the average small farm, the average strawberry farm or whatever, the privately owned strawberry farm, they're only making $50,000-$60,000 a year themselves. So what are they supposed to do? Just operate at a loss? And one of the things, like in order to hire a legal immigrant, they have to advertise in the paper for 30 days for Americans to come and take that job. So these jobs are not jobs Americans want, but to just say that it's just about pay? No. Well, you just march right in and complain to your boss and tell him you want higher wages. Lower interest rates, increase wages, regulate housing. It's very easy. Okay, none of that goes together, especially when you already have inflation up and going up. It's going to end up going again because gas prices have started to tick back up in August. So inflation fell very slightly in July, but it's going to go back up in August. And you don't lower interest rates while inflation is going up. Regulate housing how? What do you mean regulate housing? That's just like, and then you say it's very easy, but that nothing you said goes together or is easy. Like how does the federal government regulate housing? Have you ever had a house? Have you ever met a homeowners association? Here's a joke for you, Brett. What do you know? Like there's flock of seagulls, or like a group of different animals. You know what you call a grouping of Karens? A homeowners association. Watch him laugh in your face because he's not going to take a loss in his own profit. He got a Corvette to buy next month. Profit. I kind of like profit better. We have to break it to fix it. No, we don't. Take one for the team. Liar. Illegal immigrants cause higher unemployment. No, they don't. And I'm not lying. I am telling you what Wharton said. That's a Wharton study that says that. That you don't know something does not mean it is not true. And it does not mean that I am lying. It means that you simply do not know what you're talking about. Do you think Wharton made it up? Do you think that the Wharton School of Business, one of the most respected business schools in the entire world, just made this up to like own Trump? Also, I unless your name is really Steve Martin, please don't besmirch a great comedian's name. Oh, YouTube. Oh, he's a chomo. You could try using your brain instead of rhetoric and learn something. It's a good thing you didn't see what YouTube withheld in the comments. Oh, he's done. Good. The cost of labor has a limit. You can't pay people $20 an hour and still expect to sell a hamburger for $1. Exactly. Well, California raised near minimum wages of like $20, and the result was everyone got rid of pizza delivery people. I think the California law has been completely misrepresented. I don't remember hang on. Let me refresh my memory. And I'd like to remind California is also the most expensive state to live. It's been misrepresented in several important ways, especially in claims California simply raised minimum wage to $20 and immediately destroyed tens of thousands of jobs. The biggest problems are scope, time, cherry pick baselines, and treating correlation as causation. First, it wasn't California's general minimum wage. The law raised the wage floor to $20 beginning April 1st, 2024 for workers at covered fast food chains, generally chains with at least 60 establishments nationwide. California's ordinary minimum wage remained much lower. A lot of the early jobs loss numbers weren't actually measurements of jobs lost because of the law. Commentators would take a decline in California fast food employment from some conveniently selected starting month and attribute the entire decline to AB 1228. But employment was already moving differently in California before the law took effect. You need a counterfactual. What would California fast food employment have done without the law, not simply unemployment? So it's saying there was already a trend of these jobs being lost, but then they just picked up with a certain date and said, oh, look, all of these jobs were lost exclusively because of it. But then some of those jobs would have already been being lost anyway. This really is an academic dispute now, which is important. A 2025 NBER working paper by Clemens, Edwards, and Meir estimates roughly an 18,000 job reduction relative to the counterfactual, or about 3.2%. That's a legitimate economic estimate, not the simplistic headline calculation above. But UC Berkeley researchers using different comparison methods and increasingly granular establishment level data reached essentially the opposite conclusion. About an 11% increase in weekly wages with no detectable unemployment reduction. Their latest version was published in March 2026 and incorporates 2 years of data. So, according to Berkeley, it actually raised wages without a deductible employment reduction. And this is something I find has been consistent with raising the minimum wage, is sometimes there's an initial impact where some jobs are lost, but over time, see what happens is when you raise the minimum wage, it costs businesses more money, but it gives workers more money. And then the workers spend that money that they give, that they earn. And so you not just, these workers are getting more money, but that also means that they are buying more burgers, so to speak. Fast food prices exploded was also exaggerated. Berkeley's latest estimate is about a 1.5% price increase attributed to the wage law, roughly 6 cents on a $4 item. That's a real cost, but considerably different from the impression created by stories highlighting individual restaurants that raised prices 10, 20%, etc. Workers unquestionably got sustainably more money. The disagreement is primarily over employment effects, not whether wages rose. So anyway, there's a brief summary of that. Generally speaking, the California raising its fast food worker minimum wage has actually had a better impact on the economy, and it only applies to like franchises where there's at least 60. So it's not like mom and pop shops are having to pay it. I've known several general contractors who have had great difficulty finding laborers. Long-term oil prices. I don't see them coming down anytime soon. Not when Donald Trump is sitting there threatening more wars in Oman. I've known several general contractors who have had great difficulty finding laborers that will stay. One had several college students work for a day and not even come back to get paid for that day. Oh yeah. Some of these jobs. Okay, first of all, the American citizens that you're going to find those jobs, they're the ones that couldn't find a job doing anything else. You know what they are? They're usually like college dropouts and stuff that are more worried about, where they're going to go drink tonight than they are about getting, like a good hard day's work in, or, like working for the future. Day laborers are day laborers for a reason. And the day laborers that are American citizens are usually a different class of workers than the day laborers who are undocumented immigrants. The undocumented immigrants are probably going to be much better workers than the college student that dropped out and is going to get drunk tonight and is hungover today. I think they'll fluctuate a little bit, but I think that I've been, I kind of watch them, and they've been seeming to bounce around between $80 and $90 lately. If I'll go look today, I think it was, yeah, right there. Brent crude is actually 91.08. That's the one you want to look for. It's 256. I think it's going to keep going up for a while. I think people are starting to get wise to Donald Trump's whole, you know, ropey dope thing. I think people have acknowledged this war is not ending anytime soon. So for how long? 6 months? For what? For how long? 6 months? I don't I have no idea how long if you're talking about Iran, I don't think it's going to be over in 6 months. I think we will still be in this whole mess when Donald Trump leaves office in 2028. Because Iran has just given up on trying to work with the guy. And who can blame them? He's already broken like 3 deals with them. College graduates are not getting jobs right now. Those entry-level jobs that they used to get in offices are going away. Right. But they're not going to go move to, like Texas to work on a strawberry farm. That's the other part of it. It's not just what the job is, it's where the jobs are. My nephew just got a job, $55K just out bank. $55K is not that much money anymore. I mean, it's not, sadly. It's barely enough money to live off now. Entry level in Florida is okay. Well, might be, okay, what is the median? Median income in Florida right now is 75. So 55 is hardly bank. Hey Ham, how you doing? I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. I made, how I've been talking about my food journey. This weekend I made some bread, and I made pot pie. I've been, like when I was a kid, I always liked the frozen pot pies, but I wanted to make like an adult version of pot pie. So I made these chunky vegetables and got some chicken and some cut big chicken chunks, and I cooked it all up in a pan, and then I made like a kind of a buttermilk batter, like biscuit batter almost, except a little bit thinner. Poured it on top, popped it in the oven, and made these chicken pot pies that are really, really good. And then I made a really, really simple dish, dessert that's totally the most underrated cookie of all cookies, but is a wonderful tasting cookie. And when you make them with fresh milled flour, it takes it to a different level. I mixed 80% soft white and 20% einkorn, which you probably have no idea what any of that tastes like. But it really, the einkorn, when you're working with fresh milled flour, first of all, like the flour has flavor, and different grains have different flavors. And einkorn has this kind of nutty flavor. And I made snickerdoodles. And snickerdoodles are like the underrated cookie. And they're basically like butter and sugar, fell in love, had sex, and had a baby named Cinnamon. and then they push it around in a baby carriage made out of fresh milled flour. They're so good because it's the delivery device. But they were so good. They were I'm almost I made I made them on Saturday night, and I'm almost out of them. I might have to make some more. High taxes, so higher wages. Um, yeah, but there's also when you look at relative buying power, California has more relative buying power than say Texas or Oklahoma. When you take into account the higher prices and the higher wages, states like California and Illinois actually have more buying power. You can buy more with your money that you make in California or Illinois than you can in like Texas or Oklahoma. Do you trust the information anymore? I think, if anything, it's skewed to Trump. If anything, the numbers are being manufactured in Trump's favor, but I haven't seen any evidence that any of the numbers are being cooked. Where I live, even counter service expects a tip. When you click 0 on the kiosk, they look at you like they want to spit in your face. I've never had that, and I think that what happens with some of these things, with like some of these kiosk things, at least where I live, it's just they're just, like the guy that's at the counter didn't design the software to ask for a tip, and it's not my job to pay an extra wage. That's their job. I think we should do away with tipping altogether. I think that all of that should just be factored in. If you ever go to Europe, ask Harry. Like, tipping is weird to them. The idea of tipping is weird. Like, that's why their boss pays them. Like, you just the minimum wage for a waiter, I think, is like $2.15 an hour or something. Yes. I don't recall what I was saying. No need for billionaires, 1 trillionaire. I don't even think there's a need for multimillionaires on higher taxes. Yeah, I think we need more. I think we need higher taxes. What $4? How much are you willing to pay for a pizza? I don't pay for pizzas anymore. I make them. Pizzas are even if you don't do fresh milled flour, just go to the grocery store, buy one of those Pillsbury crust pizzas, and some, sauce and some pepperoni and some shredded cheese, and just put together your own pizza, and it'll be better than anything you can. Most of the pizzas you're going to order online, and it's going to cost you a third as much. But my pizzas. I make my own dough. My dough is my pizza is better than any pizza you've ever had, Walter. I can promise you. And it cost me like $3 to make a pizza. There it is. No. Love what elitist attitude. How I don't understand what you mean by elitist attitude, and there it is. An LOL. I don't understand what you're getting at here. I got to step out for about 20 minutes. I'll be back if you're still on. Walter's here if anything, if we need any moderating. Thanks, Brett. Classic. I don't know what you're talking. Regarding housing, we need to severely restrict HOA or ban them. The federal government can regulate housing by manufacturing affordable pricing and oversight into real estate hedge funds. How do they do that, though? Some European countries already started doing it, but you realize that Republicans are never going to do it, and as soon as the Democrats start doing it, the Republicans are going to start screaming and screeching communism. Like that's not a realistic solution here. It's not going to happen. I don't know what you're talking about. Caste system approved by Kelly. Why I this is you're just kind of like saying stuff. You mean how the federal bill that the president doesn't want to sign now? Yeah, well, it became law anyway. But yeah, there was a bill that Congress passed when she didn't sign for more than 10 days, so it went into effect anyway. But like he didn't sign it and he didn't veto it. But I think this is an example of Congress working together to come up with real solutions to real problems, and I wish there could be more of it. Yeah, I know my actually if it's only 5 minutes slow, I'm doing better than usual. Working at a bank. Trump is convincing his supporters that it's worth paying a little more for has in order to stop that it's worth paying a little more for he has in order to stop Iran from being a nuke. He keeps pushing that they've been changing death to America. Yeah, we haven't. We have not been at war with Iran for 47 years. A and B. You're absolutely right. This whole, he's saying just pay a little bit more. All these people that are millionaires sitting there telling the hundredaires to just like bite the bullet and pay a little more at the pump, while they're arguing that their taxes shouldn't be increased. The sacrifices for poor people, not rich people. Iran never had a functional nuclear weapon. Iran was never even close to a functional nuclear weapon. Iran doesn't have a large capability. North Korea, on the other hand, does. China does. Russia does. Yes. Hang on. His followers constantly chant those lies. That's all they have. Oh, they just repeat the dumbest talking points. Einkorn, yeah, it's what's called one of the ancient grains. There's like einkorn, emmer, korshon, and spelt are the main ones I work with. But yeah, and each one there's like a little. Some of them like have more gluten, and some of them like the gluten works a little differently. And that's part of the fun of like the thing with fresh milled flour or with the store-bought flour. First of all, it's processed until all the flavor's out of it. Then they take all the bran out of it and all the oil out of it because the oil goes rancid unless you buy the whole wheat, in which case the oil is left in it and it goes rancid, which is why nobody likes the taste of whole wheat flour because it's been sitting around for a couple of months. But if you use fresh milled flour, you actually taste the wheat. The wheat is a flavor ingredient, not just a binding agent. And that's the first thing it takes time to get used to. You're like, oh, that's what wheat tastes like. And each kind of grain, hard red has this rustic flavor. Hard white has a more traditional, like what you think of flavor. But it tastes more that way. Like and then you've got like einkorn, which has this kind of nutty flavor, and you've got it's called taf, an Ethiopian grain, which has like that's made for the Ethiopian bread, like the fluffy bread, but it's also I found out it's really good in brownies because it has this kind of cocoa-y flavor. Anyway, you start to like, as you work with different grains, you find out that some things work better with certain dishes and certain foods complement some grains better than others. And so the grain itself becomes an ingredient, not just the flour. And this side effect of his entire war is that other countries are now going to start seeking the protection of nuclear weapons, such as this treaty with the Middle East and Pakistan. And a perfect example of South Korea, American pulls back, causes a vacuum, cables seek their way to fill the vacuum. Trump is negatively affecting the whole world. He's making us all much less safe, much less. Whatever happened to Trump's no tax on tips? No one is making enough money to get tips. This is a fair point, and the whole no tax on tips thing was A, people probably weren't always paying taxes on tips anyway. B, Kamala was saying the same thing. But I think that, how about we just cut taxes for people that only make so much money? Like, let's have a tax cut for poor people. I try to tip the DoorDash guy. When I was ordering DoorDash, I don't order DoorDash anymore, but when I was ordering DoorDash, I never tipped less than $5, even if it was just a mile away. Because you don't know how long it's going to take them to get to the store. Don't pay extra for the quick delivery, though. It turns out that's a scam. They don't get to you direct anyway. Kelly, you made some big investments in order to be able to make $3 pizzas. I didn't make big investments to make a $3 pizza. I bought a fresh milled flour. I bought a mill that was like $340 like 6 years ago, and I've been using it for 6 years. Well, off and on, especially for like 2 years, and I've probably made, like hundreds of loaves of bread and brownies and cookies and all kinds of stuff with that. I don't have to go and buy the whole thing every single time. Over the long run, I think the mill's probably paid for itself. It cost me, like, my bread costs $1.25 to make. So you think 2 years worth of bread, if you go through 2 loaves of bread a week, and let's say you're just buying a regular loaf of bread, and it's like $2 a loaf, that's $100 a year. And that's for so it's already paid for itself just on the bread. And I'm not eating like the cheap bread. I'm eating like my bread is healthier. Like it's organic. It's like the Dave's super bread, but only better. It's even better than the Dave's bread, like from a health standpoint. Buckwheat is very nice too. I haven't tried buckwheat yet. I just buy the loaf of the cheap bread at the corner convenience store and get the gut ache and bloat later. I don't have time to make my own. I've got it. It takes me about 10 minutes of actual work to make a loaf of bread. You combine the ingredients. I put them in my mixer. That takes about, 5 minutes of work, and then I have to shape it and put it in a pan. That's another 5 minutes, and then just score it real quick, throw it in the oven. That maybe takes a minute or two, but easily less than 15 minutes. I can, like, the amount of time it takes me to make a loaf of bread is less time than it takes you to walk to the grocery store or to the corner store. But I've got some practice at it. All right, so we're just over 2 hours. So we're gonna end here. Brett, once again, thanks for doing your moderating. Lise, enjoyed your participation, and never did find out what why I was supposed to bug out and why I was for the caste system from John, but oh well. I'll talk to you guys later and hope you have a lovely evening. I'll see you tomorrow.